Everyone, please give your undivided attention to Rabbi Shuchatowitz Jr. And if it's okay that I ask everyone, please turn off their phones. Thank you.
Welcome to the Kollel. So happy everybody was able to make it here tonight. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Okay, thank you for coming. Kollel would like to thank our sponsors, the Henry, Bertha, and Edward Rothman Speaker Series. Another sponsor is the Jewish Columbus. We appreciate that. It's very meaningful. For me, to have my father here is very meaningful to me. I made this trip here to the Columbus Community Kollel. My father is the rabbi in a shul in Baltimore, like good of Green Spring. He leads the Baltimore Basin. From a very young age, for me to have exposure to someone that has greatness in Torah, mastery in Torah, someone that's always sitting there with a pile of sperm open in front of him, gave me a sense, a taste, appreciation, a perception of what Torah greatness is. And I always like to hear Torah from my father. There's always something new, there's always something unique, there's always something different. It's very meaningful. As the world changes, so we know the world changed a lot since we have the internet. The world is very likely to continue changing from artificial, very good, from artificial intelligence. Whenever changes happen in the world, we try to look at the Torah tradition, we try to look at Torah leaders, what the moral compass of the Torah's perspective on those changes is. What does Hashem want us to do? What is the Devar Hashem? What is the word of Hashem? What is Halacha? What does Hashem want us to do? Without further ado, my esteemed father.
Thank you so very much. I want to tell you the truth. I came here because I wanted to visit my children. But that said, I want to get a chance to see the community. I figured I have to walk up and down the streets and be able to knock on every door to go to see the community. Here, the community came over here. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful to see so many different faces and everyone getting along together. It's just amazing. And to see over here planting Torah like Rabbi Mordechai has done over all these decades, and the people of Kollel and the people that associate with the Kollel, it's such a beautiful thing. We should all continue to do so, and eventually this base Spanish should be transplanted to Jerusalem, speedily in our days. Amen. We're here to speak about AI, artificial intelligence. But before we're doing so, I want to speak about artificial vanilla flavoring. If you want to talk about vanilla flavoring and what to use with, how it's going to work in your recipes, you really should first find out about the real thing, natural vanilla, and the differences between them, and then know how to apply it and use it well. And likewise, we should first understand more. I'm not even sure I need it. Let's first understand natural human intelligence, how that works, and then we'll see what the artificial one is doing instead. By comparison, knowing how to deal with it and use it best. In our daily davening, our daily prayers, the first of the middle requests that we make is about intelligence. Ata chaynein l'adam das. We turn to Hashem and say, you grant intelligence, understanding, knowledge to people. Mulambi lenosh bina, and keeps on changing the terminology. First it says das, which could be translated as wisdom, and then you teach people, you give them bina, which is understanding, And we ask God, please, knowledge, understanding, intelligence, good sense. If you have the Sfard text, then you say, different terms for knowledge and intelligence and understanding. And then it sums up in one word. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed you Hashem, choni hadas. Now it's all compacted into one concept. What are these different synonyms, just repetitions? Let's understand what intelligence really is. The first step is knowledge. Knowledge is becoming acquainted and familiar and knowledgeable about any subject or many subjects. An extreme of it is being encyclopedic knowledge. Almost anything you want. As a person, you can read out to you all the information that you want about it. Knowing a lot of information, that's das, that's daya, that's the chachma, just knowing the facts. Knowing the facts is similar to a Google search, where you want to find out something and it'll give you a printout about everything that talks about that. It won't process it, it won't analyze it, it won't give you any kind of recommendations, it won't give you any kind of options or decisions, but it'll give you out a readout of what's available on the subject. That's just information. That's when you go to a Britannica or to any other source of database of information. A step beyond that is called Bina, which is to analyze and understand how to apply what I know. This knowledge, what's going to be logical conclusions from this? If this is so in these instances, what's going to be in a new instance? Well, by comparison, similar situations are probably going to have something similar. That which is different is probably going to not be similar. It's going to be a different kind of application. If you want to get a appraisal on your house, so the realtor makes comps. Comps are comparisons to similar types of properties in a similar kind of area, and you see what their similar market value was, and therefore you can make an appraisal of this one. By making a comparison of things that are alike, I can draw conclusions. That's going from knowledge to now to conclusions I can draw and apply to something else as well. That's the Bina. The learning world, the first level of knowledge is called Bekias. I'm a Baki. I'm very knowledgeable about things. A second level is the Lamdan, the Lamdis, to be able to bring out from what I know other new things, new conclusions, new discoveries, new applications. And then beyond that, there's Das. Das takes it a deeper level, to analyze and understand the reason why it works, not just what all the information is all about, but to have to understand the whys and the reasons. And if we really understand why it's all like that, then I'll be able to much better understand when it's going to work and how it's going to work and what has to be changed in different kinds of situations, because I really understand what it's all really about. That's an amkus, that's a depth of understanding. And then, after all that, you have to have a little bit of common sense too. You have to have some seichel. Without the seichel, you can be brilliant and come up with the most amazing kinds of concepts. But you have to also have your feet on the ground and feel out reality. It might be the ideal, it should be like that, but then in reality, there's different considerations. There's sometimes opposing forces, sometimes there's challenges and things obstacles that you have to overcome. Therefore, with a good seichel, with good common sense, you can make an intelligent decision about everything you've learned to know now, and that which you extrapolated from it, that which you got the depth of understanding from it. You came to a conclusion, but then you have to say, let's talk real. What's going to be? How's it going to work? What do I have to do? And then I can really become a chacham. I get a wisdom. I give you sage advice and a wise conclusion, but I put all that together. A simple Google search, before AI is now blended into it, is simply the first level. There's no intelligence, there's a lot of information. The intelligence is when you can take that and also analyze and bring conclusions from it, and understand the depth of it, and apply what they call with good common sense, and know what to do with it. And that's the intelligence that a person, God's gift to mankind, that makes a person and not an animal, is that he has all that built into him, and it's an amazing thing. You and I and all the people over here and everyone that you know, because Baruch Hu gave us, Hashem gave us incredible brains that have, even no one could understand how much things they could process. So now, God gives us another gift, and that is that we can start doing things with electronic machines, and we can try to simulate knowledge, and not just knowledge, but analysis, understanding, and application with these different levels of understanding. The Ata Feinam Das now can be translated into that application as well. So the AI, artificial vanilla flavoring, wants to go a step further now, and not just give me a lot of information that I could read out, but also be able to analyze and figure out how to apply this, what to do with it, what's going to work, what recommendations, what it would decide and tell you what you should do in different situations. How could a machine do that? Machines don't have brains. Machines cannot reflect and give a reasoning. What is the machine doing? So what the machine is doing over here, to understand it, and then we'll go into a lot of applications of it. What the machine is over here is doing, it's taking an enormous, a massive, indescribably great amount of information, of the DOS, the data, just the knowledge that is completed. It has a collection of information that's far beyond any other collection. Basically, everything's available on the public domain from anything that's on the internet, anything that's on social media, anything that's in any library in the world, in any language, because language is not a barrier, because it translates everything, language to another one. Scientific math articles, medical research, history, personal information, customer data. The scope of what it contains is not megabytes and not gigabytes. It's petabytes. It's billions of billions of billions, but multiplied beyond any kind of scope. And that is just a collection of information. There's no wisdom in that. That's just an enormously exaggerated kind of a database. But then it has the ability to start analyzing it and drawing conclusions. But the way it does that with a secret that's called an algorithm. Algorithm is a fancy word. It comes from the same Greek or Latin word that arithmetic comes from, which is a mathematical formula, a sequence of specific instructions, step by step, what to do. On the simplest level, when you make a recipe, you're cooking something for supper or for Shabbos, you're doing an algorithm. There's a step-by-step instruction what you're supposed to do when you're taking driving directions. That's an algorithm as well. Of course, these are far more complex. That's telling the computer what to do with all the information. Basically, what it's doing is looking for patterns, looking for things that are similar. And from the vast amount of billions of bits of data, it looks for patterns that start repeating themselves. And those things that are repeating themselves are going to be similar. And the more that you could localize and narrow down the scope of how much things are going to be similar, and the more things that you have are similar, the more you can now say that's probably what's going to be working. That's what's being requested in this case. But it works just the opposite of how a human brain works. The way a human brain works is, I have an idea, I have a thought, I have a dream of something I want, and then I have to figure out how do I express it, how do I sell it, how do I explain it. I have to find the words to be able to convey my thought, and now put it down onto paper, let's say, and into a speech. How do I present it as a presentation? So I first come with the idea, the concept, the brainstorm, and then from there, I have to look for the words to express it. The computer has no brains. The computer has no way of reflecting and thinking anything. It has an enormous amount, uncountable amount of data. It looks for the patterns of the words, and it puts all those words together. It's called large language modules. It has billions and billions of pieces of words, and they all seem to work together to this, and all relate to the same subject, and it does it again and again and again and narrows it down. And then, it prints out a paper that is going to offer you as being the explanation of what you're looking for. And often gets it right? But what it's doing is from the words, it's coming to give you the explanation, rather than from the concept, it's looking for the right words to express it. It's doing the opposite of what your actual thought is doing. But the more that they could perfect that, the more that they could test that out and make it work right, then you get amazing things that you get back from that. It could do that with images, with audio and visual, and sight recognition, face recognition, picking people out of crowds. The IDF uses it to recognize people that where they are and know what to do with them. Hashem should be Shem all our brothers and sisters in Israel and save all the hostages and protect our people. But they use this over there very much. You know that recently they had a problem that the radar that they've been using for years to be able to track down incoming missiles that they could knock down with the Iron Dome kind of system, Baruch Hashem. They couldn't do that with the drones. The drones come in too low. They're evasive, and the radars pick them up. And for a while, that they were getting stopped by these drones. So they came up with an AI kind of formula, which is able to take all the information from the satellites and from every kind of point of vision of cameras, and be able to count exactly where the drones are. And now they knock down the drones with the AI. It has endless kinds of applications, and it usually gets it right. And that's with visual cues. And the relevance of this is just right now it's permeating our society, and businesses are using it and gobbling it up, and it's getting to be everywhere. And we're right now just at the beginning of it. We're at the Wilbur Brothers plane and the Model T Ford kind of AI. It's just starting to launch. 2.5 years ago, I think they just started the chat GPT, and now there's a whole bunch of other ones as well. And people are using it. But we have to once we understand what it is, we have to also understand that it's not infallible. It makes mistakes. There's a number of reasons why it makes mistakes, and those mistakes then become now something we have to be wary of, and they can have lots of implications to them. Did I skip a section over here that you're looking at? I'll tell you that there was a story. One of the largest financial credit companies called FICO, Fair Isaacs Company, that marks, you all have a FICO score on your credit rating, and which affects to your ability to borrow money and to get jobs and tenant to rent your apartment and whatever you want. They use the FICO card. Most banks in the whole world use the FICO system. In the beginning of COVID, when people couldn't go to the stores, everyone was started shopping online. And millions of people that had good credit and had good credit cards, had plenty of credit available, all their sales were being declined, and they couldn't understand it. And there was a supply shortage. I can't go to the store, the supply is short, and then why am I being declined all my purchases? It took about 2 or 3 years afterwards to figure out what went wrong. And that was that the AI system that FICO was using analyzed everyone's personal shopping habits and matched them up to see if they're normal. And said, hey, it's not normal. These people are making so many more out of the ordinary kind of purchases that it must also be a lot of fraud. They gave a message to the bank to deny these charges because they're all fraud, because they're out of the pattern. All it knows is patterns. It wasn't a regular pattern. Someone forgot to inform the AI that there's such a thing as a pandemic. Right? Everyone else knew it, but the AI didn't. So because of that, millions of people now had a lot of frustration on their. So that's a case in which there was insufficient information. Right, they had everyone's information of every shopping they've done in the last 10 years, but it didn't have the information about change the patterns right now because the world has changed. And you know what? The world always changes, and therefore it always has to catch up with itself. If it's behind the times, it's not going to operate right. Information also could be biased. It could be biased, not be a fair set of information, because innocently, the information was given to it doesn't reflect the reality. Amazon had a story that it put AI in charge of vetting its candidates for jobs, who to hire or who to downsize and fire. And instead of having to have the human services having to make those decisions, let AI go through all of our thousands of employees and make decisions for us. And what it did is it hired only men and discriminated against all women. No women got a job in the next couple of years after AI was introduced. And they said, this is discriminatory. Amazon, that's not fair. No one's going to stand for that. So they figured out that the AI had analyzed the previous 10 years worth of hires, and most of them were men. So therefore decided best workers, best employees for Amazon are all men. We're only gonna hire men, we're gonna hire women. So that was bias, that was unfair information that was given to them that had to be adjusted. Bias can also be done not so innocently. And that is that if I have a particular preference, I could now give a lot of information to the database, to the big data, that's going to promote one view or one religion or one political position or one sport preference, whatever it is that you like, your team or your candidate, whoever it might be. And it has so much positive information about that and not so much about the other one, it's always going to say that's the best one. I'm not getting into politics, but according to Forbes in February 25, a month ago, there's an allegation that Mr. Musk, who's not the most popular person necessarily in the world, has X with a bias in his AI for conservative and right-wing kind of opinions. Whether it's true, whether it's not true, doesn't matter to me. But it can be done. And it can be done in business as well, because I can produce something that's going to be preferential to my type of business or my particular brand rather than the competitors. So bias can be done. That's going to affect the accuracy of decisions. And then there's another factor, and that is how you ask a question. Anyone who asks a shaila from a Rav knows that how you ask a question is how you get the answer, unless Ravs were to see right through it and figure out what the story is. But if you ask the AI question, an objective question, and say, how does living in Columbus compare to living in Cleveland? And it'll give you a readout of the pluses and minuses of the cost of living, of safety, of government services, of healthcare, of education, real estate prices, business opportunities. Give you a whole list of them and say, can you do pluses and minuses of any place? Let's say I pose my question to the AI and say, what are the advantages of Columbus over Cleveland? I'm gonna get a whole different story. It's gonna tell me 25 reasons that everyone should be in Columbus and everyone should leave Cleveland right now, because Cleveland is terrible, right? So it depends how you ask your question, you could bias the answer. And therefore, the question has to be asked professionally and objectively in order to be able to get a proper answer. And therefore, the conclusion that we have to realize from this is that AI is an amazing tool. It's a tool that could, first of all, produce information beyond imagination. And it could process it and analyze it, and it could come up with suggestions and recommendations in any area, in areas of medicine, in areas of business, in areas of gardening, whatever you want. It's going to give you a lot of information. It's going to give you the best way to take care of your tulips or your tomatoes, or take care of your children. Or write a show, whatever you want, put it over there, it's gonna have that information. But realize that no matter what, it's not natural vanilla flavor. It's not the real thing. It's always trying to get most likely what an intelligent person that has natural intelligence, what he would say, based on the fact that that's usually the answer, very narrowed down, it sounds not very good. And it's not the real thing. So you have to use it as a tool and then look it over with natural intelligence, and then you decide whether it's worthwhile to go that direction or not. Very recently in March, earlier this month, Google introduced its new level of Gemini 2 AI system into its searches, because it's otherwise everyone's abandoning Google searches and going to the AIs. But it gave a warning over there, says that it has lots of hallucinations, they call it. Hallucinations are things that are made up, things that are false, things that are incorrect. Results in falsehoods, which the tech industry calls hallucinations. And they give an announcement that we won't always get it right. Some responses may unintentionally appear to reflect a particular opinion. And more stringent guardrails have to be put in place to prevent AI mode from steering people in the wrong direction, especially for queries involving health and finance. If it gives people the wrong advice in health and medicine, it can be very dangerous. If we give the wrong advice as far as financial advice, it could be serious losses. And therefore, it always needs fine-tuning, and that's something to always to be aware of. In the area of medicine, it's one of the areas that it's very widely used. The JAMA, the Journal of America, the AMA, American Medical Association, has now become the JAMA and AI. That's the now official name of it. Because they've introduced it across the board. And medical research, pharmaceutical companies, they need to spend billions of dollars to research something to see whether it's going to be the right medication. Now they can put all the information into an AI and it'll spit it out. They'll be able to take it out, right? Doesn't cost billions of dollars anymore, but it can make mistakes. And it makes mistakes, those are giant mistakes. You have to really check them out so carefully. So that's an area that is being tremendously widely used. And yet it has to be done with a lot of caution. On the one hand, healthcare is one of the biggest expenses of our economy. And cutting down, there's a shortage of nurses and doctors and the social security system and the Medicare system. There's lots to be talked about on all those subjects. And here you can cut out all the cost to a tiny fraction of it. The reliability is the second thing that goes into it. There was a story that was printed about a nurse that was working in a hospital in Nevada, and a patient came into the system and quickly was analyzed as having sepsis, which is a life-threatening cross-system type of infection. And the protocol that was recommended was that he had to immediately be administered large doses of IV fluids to be able to flush it out with antibiotics. And that was what the computer, because nowadays all the nurses and all that, they have these computers that tell them what to do step by step. That's what he's supposed to do. So the nurse, though, a live human nurse, Baruch Hashem, they still have some of those around. This nurse, he said, wait a second, this patient has kidney problems. If you flush too much on a fluid, you could make a kidney failure. You can't do that to this kind of a patient. So they asked the head nurse. The nurse said, follow protocol. Don't be so smart. What do I do now? Baruch Hashem, a physician walked by and overheard the conversation, looked at it and said, no, that's not what you do. There's a different procedure how you take care of a person with kidney. Do this. And he told him what to do. But if you just spoke by the AI, that was insufficient information. They knew about that, but they didn't know about this. It was another case that there was so many problems of disease, and they put it through all the AIs, and it said there's no disease, and there's no cancer, and Baruch Hashem, he's fine. Then he died. Why? Because it didn't look for pneumonia. He had the infection in his lungs. He didn't have any cancer, Baruch Hashem. But if you don't look for everything, the nurse right away said, hey, this guy's not breathing right. So a live person takes more consideration into account than that. So again, the lesson is, use it. It's a tremendous tool. It can bring about. I have a friend that's in a positive way. He's been many years in the Kira Rechaikim, teaching public education about Judaism, and he's right now in the process of writing a curriculum for the Asia Torah, which is a major worldwide organization for Kira. Of protocols of how you deal with situations that come up in Kira, deal with many people have many different backgrounds and situations. How you deal with them when they're challenging situations. So he's writing up a whole curriculum for that. And he says every time he comes to a certain section of it that analyzes and he gives suggestions from experience and from people that he polls around, other people in the field that have experience. Then he puts it through the AI. And the AI comes with a whole bunch of work suggestions. Some of them right away he tosses out. But some of them he says, those are great. Why did I think of that? The best way to answer, that's what you do. He didn't ever think about it. Because the AI had at his fingertips all the Kira situations for everyone in the whole world, in any language, right, for as long back as it was available. And they got good ideas. It's a wonderful tool. But it has to be done with the discretion of someone that's in the field and understands, hey, this is a good idea. That idea, no, we're not going to do that. That was never going to work. Using it, but using it responsibly. Now we come to the halachic issues. asking a shaila, asking a question of halacha, question of what the Torah says in any given situation, is one of the fundamental elements of observance. Because no one knows that. Not you, not me, believe me, not no one. When we go to someone senior than us, someone that more learned than us, and we ask them about anything it might be, not only question about what's kosher or what things are allowed to be done on Shabbos, but how to raise my children, and what's the proper chinuch and teaching them, or about I have a non-Jewish live-in help at home. What am I allowed to let them do? What about if they cook supper for me? Is that okay? Or what about what things that they do on Shabbos in my house? I have business affairs all the time, right? When I get interest on almost every contract, how do I handle that? You know, questions across the board in every life situation. Asking a shaila, asking a halachic query from a Rav, from a Paisek, is connecting to the chain that goes all the way back to Har Sinai, to Sinai. Because my Rebbe had a Rebbe, and his Rebbe had a Rebbe, and his Rebbe had a Rebbe all the way back. Rather than just thinking on my own, yeah, I think this is okay. There's no chain of connection over there to Sinai. That's doing all as a freelancer, all on my own. But asking a shaila nowadays is something being replaced. I'll just Google it, or I'll just on my phone, I'll ask Siri or whatever there is. Hey, what's the rule of this kind of thing? I'll find an answer and say, hey, that's good enough for me. Well, first of all, it makes mistakes. This is a fascinating thing. It's sometimes when it doesn't have information, it just fabricates it, makes things up. There was a viral thing going around 2 weeks ago about Purim, when people were asking a question about do I have to have a meat meal, could I have a dairy meal, and it printed out from well-known, renowned, well-respected sources of poskim, Moshe Feinstein or someone, Auerbach or Finken, things that didn't exist. It sounded good, but when you looked inside, there were no such responses. They were talking about totally unrelated information. And someone just go home with that and say, hey, that's what it says over here. They're walking away with something that's really empty and not so. But I want to tell you the caveat on that another friend of mine said, that's if you use a simple level. But there's deeper, more reasoning machines that have a process that takes longer, and they check themselves over twice, 13 to 5, I don't know how many times over before they give an answer. And it takes maybe 10 minutes instead of an instant. But then they get it right. And he printed out for me the same question about the Purim meal with dairy, and I got all the right answers. The Rambam that says you have to, that Maimonides that says that you have to have the meat meal, and the Orva shows that makes a bit of emphasis on it. And gives me the whole gamut of the accurate sources. And therefore, with a subscription to a higher level or deeper learning type of a machine, it's possibly to overcome the problems of inaccuracies. But I want to tell you, even if you get the most accurate kind of reader in the world, it's never going to replace having a live, real Rebbe that you could turn to. Because when a Rebbe listens to the question, it's not just an immediate answer. When a Rebbe listens to the question, he wants to hear the whole story. And he might notice something that you might think is a minor point, maybe insignificant, maybe an immaterial point. And he'll say, no, let me hear that again. That makes all the difference. Something that he'll notice that the situation is one that calls for a different reaction. There's another problem that could arise over here if I don't take care of that. Or there might be a special need over here in this family situation that I have to address. And by him noticing that he's going to zero in on your real life, personal situation, rather than just a textbook kind of an answer. Secondly, some answers, some question could have multiple applications. Could I do a certain thing on Shabbos? Well, there are 39 different principles of what is restricted on Shabbos. And you might be thinking about A, and that's not a problem over here, but you know what? H and M might apply over here, right? And the Rav has to take all those different things into account and see how they're going to apply to your situation. And that could be missed, like the pneumonia or the kidney issue. In Halacha also, there's many different things that might play a role. But the live Rav with natural intelligence, real vanilla, will be able to really zone in and relate to. sometimes there's a subjectivity that a Rav might even find that the same question being asked by two people, in one case, it might be okay. In the other case, no, it's not something you should do. Because in your case, I'm worried about other things happening. In the first case, I wasn't worried about it. So, for him to really know a background of a person, on a personal level, their situation, their family, their business, he'll be able to really assess a bigger picture than just the narrow question that's being asked, which might be only part of the story. And if you don't get the whole story right, then you're not getting the answer right. There are also different levels in which, different approaches to how halacha, a Jewish law issue is decided. There are backgrounds, for instance, of Ashkenaz, Sfard, Hasidim, Israeli, and American, that have different backgrounds to them. Some of them work with a tremendous amount of information, and they line it up, and most opinions say it one way or the other way. Other places don't do the counting up information and sources. Rather, they're more analytical, getting down to the root of the issue and finding a proof for that. Other places will have an approach of making sigrufim, which means that there might be 5 different things that each one of those is not reliable itself. But since all 5 of them over here, together we say it's okay, right? You know, what background you deal with this particular person? What stage is he holding in his observance? Where's he coming from, or she? Taking the holistic kind of approach, if you want, of who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with. A Rav could do that, a Rabbi could do that, or especially a Rabbi that knows you personally, and you have a relationship that you talk to often. He gets to know you and your family and your situation, or your business, or your health situation, financial situation, and he's able to relate now to that on a direct subjective level. And that's when you get a real connection to a Rebbe that connects you back to his Rebbe and his Rebbe. Most often when I would ask my Rebbe for improvements at Solomon Roshib in Baltimore, and ask him a question what to do, he wouldn't give me an answer. He would tell me a story. He'd tell me a story about, I once was with my Rebbe back when I was in yeshiva, and this is what he did. And he wanted me from that to realize, oh, that's what the lesson he's trying to teach me. And it's connecting me back to a chain of Masora, of generation after generation, all the way back. Having a Rebbe, it says in Pirkei Avos, the Seilach Harav, make yourself a Rebbe, someone that you connect to, someone that you speak to, someone that you trust, someone that's going to get to know you, and you'll get to have answers that really are custom made, custom fit for your own self. That AI can never duplicate. The AI is a powerful tool, and it should be used as that, to produce all that information. But then the information has to be put in front of someone that can know how to chew it up, to analyze it, to do what to make of it, where to go with it. Thank you very much. I made a brother before. And that's something that is worth itself integrating. Baruch Hashem, even every community is blessed with the people that you can turn to. They have people that they turn to, and that's how we all get along together. Together, we're all trying to do the right thing, and turning to someone higher than us helps us do that. Halacha relates to every situation that we have, and not just in religious rituals, in every aspect of our life. The current Rosh Yeshiva in Baltimore, Rabbi Felderslita, was once on a flight, probably back and forth to Israel, and he used the restroom. And after coming out of the restroom, there's usually a line on the planes for the next person to come in to use it. He got out after washing his hands and made the blessing Ashiyotzar, which we make upon after we're doing our needs. And he was standing there after coming out quietly to himself, and he was saying the blessing. And the next fellow in line asked him, "What are you saying now?" He just went to the bathroom. Okay, so it's human function. But what are you doing now? He said, "I'm thanking God that gave me the internal systems that clean myself out and make me healthy." And the man who was not Jewish background said, "You Jews are amazing. Every single part of your life you connect to God." And he was right. That's exactly how we live. Every single part of our life we connect to God. The Torah is not just about religious rituals and observation and observances. But it's about how we live and applies to every part of our life. And sometimes people have an idea that I come over here into a shul, into a kollel, that's God's place, I have to be religious here. But in my business, I'm just a regular lawyer, accountant, doctor, whatever businessman, whatever my background over there, what I learned in school, I got my degrees. The Torah is a way of dealing with all situations. And in the usage of AI, produces new situations. And how do we approach those? So before I talk about some actual applications, I just want to run down with you a list of concepts that we have in mind as we go about dealing with our business with other people, whether it be I'm a CEO of a large company, or whether I have a babysitter or a repairman coming to my house. Logically speaking, a person is always obligated to be concerned about other people as he's concerned about himself. That's a common knowledge idea. Half the reason why you care about someone else, you care about himself. That's not only about giving him something to eat and drink, it's also about not hurting his feelings, and I want to hurt my own self, that's a loss for him, hurting someone else's feelings. And like with their property, if I can save him from a loss, I have to do a Shabbos Rebbeinu, returning or preventing a lost item. And I can't stand by and let a loss happen, not to stand by and ignore it. And we have to always deal with each other truthfully and honestly and openly, without any kind of deceit or misleading, which would get able to misleading people, which could sometimes just be of its own self something wrong. You're not being honest with me, a matter of honesty and truth and integrity. But sometimes it often even leads into misrepresentations in business, which could cause a loss to another person and could even invalidate a contract or a sale or a hire or whatever kind of agreement, which can make into a megatos, a false inducement, and an item that overly flaunted for being something that it's not, and might be really defective. It doesn't have those features. Could be a blemish that would invalidate a sale. And we have to protect ourselves from making any kind of damage to other people, whether with something that we own, which includes our business systems, as well as our own selves, not to make damage to someone else. To affect someone else's business, we'll talk about competition in a moment. Take away someone else's business is one of the most serious things. That's a way he has a right to have a living. And invasion of privacy, revealing his confidential information. Regardless, so it's a way of hurting a person, and sometimes a very serious thing as well as even reading confidential information. Rabbi Gershon made a provision against that. And infringement on intellectual property goes into Dina B'Chosudina, our obligation to keep civil law. So there's a whole gamut of halacha principles that guide us in dealing with doing business with other people. So what happens now when a business is done that runs on AI, which is getting to be a point that almost more and more businesses are in some way employing such a system, and something goes wrong. Something goes wrong is a very big problem. It's a problem that the legal world is struggling right now unsuccessfully with, because it's very hard to nail down exactly where the problem went wrong. Was the data not sufficient or biased? Was the algorithm off? And it is so complex, it goes on so many different levels, it's very hard to track down. Was it the original developer or the software applier that put it out, or the user that used it wrong? It's very hard to nail it down. The states, throughout the different states of America, have not yet proposed a way of judging these cases. The European Parliament tried for 10 years, from 2011 until this past month, and then they give up. They said they withdraw all their proposals because they don't seem to be coming together. And I'm not over here trying to make any legal proposals. But in halacha, how we deal with this? I do work in a beis din where we have to decide halachic issues in business applications, disputes between people. And if this kind of case comes up for us, how are we gonna deal with it? That's where we have to turn to halacha, to the Torah's teachings. So one application is a consultant. There are many types of consultants that are experts in different fields, and you hire them to be able to give you an assessment, an appraisal, and a recommendation about your particular field, your application. Let's say I'm making real estate investments. So I first have to do due diligence. I have to check it out to see the profitability and the expenses that are involved, etc. And it could be a lot of, sometimes it's massive stacks of information I have to go through, so many charts and so many spreadsheets and all that, and my head starts swimming with it. So instead, I just feed it into my AI machine, and it chews it over, and it comes out and says that, yeah, this checks out as being a great investment. And I make the investment, I make that recommendation to my client as I'm the consultant, just posing that right now, it's for myself. I make that recommendation, and it doesn't work out. Right? They make the investment based on what I told them, and it ends up to be a bad deal. It doesn't have the profitability that I projected. They come back to me, and they say, what went wrong? You told me it's going to be such a great deal. I said, well, I didn't really know myself. I just put it through a machine. That's what the machine said. I'll show you what it said. And they tell me, I didn't hire the machine. I hired you. And I want your opinion. Is it your opinion on your own? It's back to the doctor's story. If he checks it out with his own knowledge and figures that's who I'm relying upon. But if you just give him what the printout from the machine says, that's not who I hired, that's not who I want to rely on. They could make mistakes. I want you as a person with natural political flavor, natural intelligence, that's going to be able to tell me whether this is a good investment or not. And the same thing could apply in so many different applications, that have a liability. The Gemara gives us a principle on this, which we build on this, which is, let's say, a jeweler. I have a gem, a diamond or other gems, and in my shul we have a gemologist. It's not just a merchant, but he's a scientist that knows gems. And I would bring it to him and ask him, is this a good one to buy either for my family occasion or for a commercial, and I want to buy it wholesale or whatever it might be. And he looks it over with his loop and all that in measurements, and comes back and tells me a whole bunch of data about it. And I buy it, and it could be, commercial deals could go up into 6, 7, 8 digits. And then I find out, the next guy down the road says, this is nothing, this is garbage, this is no good, it's not worth half that amount. And I'm out for all the money that I committed for this. I come back to my gemologist over here and I say, what's going on? So Gemara says that Talmud tells us that there's liability on that since if he knew that you're relying upon him and he didn't give you an accurate assessment, then he causes you a loss. So our consultant that's just relying on our AI is a direct application for that Gemara to our modern day situation with the AI. It's also going to be causing a direct loss. So what you have to do is, first of all, check out the information yourself, as we said beforehand, just like by the doctor or the nurse. He has to look at everything, or the Rabbi is answering a question, the Halacha. He has to check out over here, according to his own experience and information and training and education, about whether this is a good recommendation. And he also has to make a disclosure. And be honest and straight out and say, not that my own brilliant idea. I went through machines. I have a very good machine, and that's what it told me. Okay, as long as you came forth and told me exactly what you're relying upon. Or if you gave me the impression you were relying on your own expertise and knowledge and examination of the story, and really just running it through a machine, then you're defrauding me. Right? That's liability on that. And there's these kinds of applications apply elsewhere as well. If I have a friend that's a programmer, and for years he's been having to write code in computer languages. It goes long, he spends hours or days on making a program. So nowadays he puts it into the AI, and it shoots out generates new code very quickly. But then he spends the time checking out every step of the way because it might miss some pieces. If you just miss a comma along the way, the whole thing's not going to work right. You have to get the syntax, everything exactly right, and he has to check it out, make sure that tested it, run it a couple times to see whether it works right. But if he wouldn't do that, and he would give it to a client that wants a program, and it wouldn't work, that would be his fault, right? So taking responsibility for the product that you're selling and making sure that it doesn't have a minimum blemish that's going to invalidate the sale. These are going to direct applications to modern day real life kind of things based on things that says in Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch about old kind of cases. Just like we deal with modern kitchen situations based on how they made the Mishkan, or traffic accidents according to what the Gemara talks about with animals that are hurting each other. We've taken the principles of the fundamental halachas and applied them to the modern situations as well. And these are applications that we make to the AI system kind of doing business as well, that to avoid any kind of misleading, any kind of fraud, any kind of overpricing or megatos, and any kind of reliance that's not reliable. So those are considerations that we have in the reliability area. There's another area about competition. Competition is what makes the economy work. If we don't have just monopolies, then whoever has that one single business in town, or in the country, or wherever the world, wherever it might be, could just do whatever they want, at whatever price they want, at whatever quality they produce, because there's nothing to compare it against. With competition in an open market, so then that controls prices down, and there has to be competitive prices, and it drives quality up, because otherwise they will go to the other good place. So Torah certainly enhances competition. And it even enhances that a competitor should help out another competitor. When I have a shoe store and someone else owns a shoe store across the street, I just say, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm not trying to slash him and put him out of business. Let me teach you a thing or two about over here, how you do business, how you advertise, how you deal with customers. Because at the end of the day, how much I'm going to earn this year, how much he's going to earn this year, it's decided on Rosh Hashanah. It comes from above. And we encourage competitors working with each other, and we encourage a competition. Because Onish, one of the greatest sages of the previous generation, says how much kedusha and holiness and beauty is introduced into the world when a competitor helps out a competitor, not feeling that I have to go against him. Competition is a very, very fine thing. However, there's also unfair competition. Unfair competition when I'm doing something to put you out of business, put the other guy out of business. To be able to give myself an unfair advantage that he can't possibly go. The Mishnah says, in that I'm allowed to run promotions and sales in my store to get people to buy my shoes instead of the other guy's shoes, because he can also make a promotion, he can also make a sale. So that's ordinary business tactics. But if I'm going to do something that's going to make it impossible for him to catch up to me, then I can put him out of business that I shouldn't do. He has to respect his interests as much as I have to respect my own. So the question is raised like this. AI, developing a whole system, not just buying one off the shelf, is a very expensive project. So I have a very big company, and therefore I can afford it. But the other guy in town that runs some kind of business, there's no way he can afford it. And therefore, if I'm going into the AI guided kind of business, maybe I have an unfair advantage. I shouldn't be able to. It could be like that. So this is a question that was posed to one of the leading poskim that we have nowadays. His name was Rabbi Weiss in Israel, and he writes in his Mordechai Shalom, Usher Sefer, an amazing observation. He said that if we stifle progress, if we stifle advancement in any area, the world doesn't work. God made the world that's supposed to work and that's supposed to advance, and there are advancements in so many areas. We went from the horse-drawn buggy to a car, and no one said that you should have many cars. We went from general stores to supermarkets and plazas and malls, right? And then that put the general store out of business. We went from the blacksmith to Andrew Carnegie and steel is still making an industrial revolution, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And like was going into the electronic age and technology and the computer age, those are advancements, which is the point of growth of the world. So really what is that we're now doing a different sort of business. I'm no longer in a horse and buggy. I'm now producing vehicles, right? So I'm also no longer in a makolet, a corner store. I have a supermarket. So likewise, I'm also no longer just doing all my computing by hand and my accounting on a spreadsheet. I'm now doing over here with AI. It's a different level of business. that is certainly permissible to do. That's not unfair competition. But as we mentioned beforehand, AIs can be biased, and I can slant them to be able to be preferential to my style, and my type of product, and my brand, and my pricing, et cetera, right? And that could be unfairly put the other person in a bad light. That would be a wrong thing to do. The temptation is great, because the profit margin that goes in that, but that's not honest. So this is what we have to balance together. Watching over our use of the AI to make sure that we check it out, to be accurate, and that we're not overlooking it, present it honestly of what it really represents, and to try to do it as fairly and honestly as possible without any kind of bias on it. And then we're doing it as ehrlich and as honest with people with integrity and using God gives to us in the right way. So in conclusion, we could say that AI, like every advancement that we've had over the centuries, in inventions, in discoveries, in economic, social, technological kind of advancements, every single one of them is a gift from God to be able to use in the right way. And use the right way for mutual good and an honest way, and with respect of each other, and without a bias, is a good thing to do. Hashem gave on the first night of the first Saturday night, Tzoi Shabbos of the world, He gave Adam fire. We make a brach by Havdalah every night, every after Shabbos we make Havdalah. Or even more Eish on the fire. Fire can be used for light. Fire can be used for heat. Fire can be used for cooking. Used for energy. Fire also can be used in a very destructive way. We can use it for the good, or we use it negatively. Now, in recent generations, we have nuclear power, which can give nuclear medicine. But we know also nuclear could have very, very scary effects as well. Everything can be used wisely in a positive way, together with natural intelligence, using artificial intelligence together with the natural intelligence, the artificial flavor with the real thing, together is the way that Hashem wants us to use it. Thank you very much. Before it's open for questions and answers, I hope I can answer that, but please answer.
I know that I've asked a lot of questions before, who could ask questions. And this one first comes up with the answer. And what if I would say AI experimental? I always said experimental.
That's right. So that's, you're doing the right thing, because you're going to the Rav. So he has to look it over and assess it and tell you what to do. But if you do it on your own and just look at that experiment, that might not always become up
I
right.
didn't make experiments. They wanted to make experiments.
That's correct. Please.
I have three different topics. So from
Okay, if I may, your name, please?
Adriel Avram Yudorba.
Okay, I'll review it.
So question number one, Rob mentioned early on that this is like Model T. So in 5 years from now, when the AI makes a lot less mistakes, no mistakes, we hear this, NVIDIA or OpenAI or Anthropic, they all talk about like having the capacity of all human civilization in one data center for 5 years from now.
That's what I said.
So if we get there, and then again,
It's going to get better and better.
So I guess how will that reshape some of the shilohs that Rabbi presented tonight? That's the first one. The second one is there's good studies at this point that show that ChatGPT as a chavrusa or as a tutor in school helps kids close to having actually a real tutor, about 2 standard deviations. I can't imagine that coming so soon into the Yeshiva world, but I can imagine when I was learning by myself. I used to not like to learn with chavrusa, but I can imagine ChatGPT is a little less hands-on than chavrusa. So how will that reshape learning? And the third one, I think AI will have residual effects. AI will have residual effects that ChatGPT and all the large language models will advance. I think it's already happening today. Will advance science in unprecedented
No question.
rates. Prolonged lives. I think average life expectancy should be expected to go up pretty drastically.
Right.
How does it go?
All three of those questions are valid, and all three of those questions, I think, are the same concept. that are going to improve, but they're never going to be personal. A personal chavrusa with your GPT is not going to do the same thing as actually living with a real person over here in the kotel. And the relationship and the connection that you have in that, and the insight and the connect, and the personality is not going to be there. And even if they don't make any mistakes, like I mentioned beforehand, with a more advanced research type of reasoning model, that didn't make the same mistakes about the dairy meal, right? But it still didn't take into account who I am, where I'm coming from, what my needs are, what are my considerations, those kinds of concepts that a Rebbe could do, that they can't do. They can improve and making better matches, exact matches, perfect matches. But it's only matches of mathematical information. And a psak at the end of the day is not just mathematics. It's the personalities involved, there's sensitivities involved, there's subjectivities that are involved, there's a proper judgment that has to be made. And that takes the real natural intelligence and a personal relationship that you never got a personal relationship with the AI.
So will it become irresponsible for a posek to answer a question without consulting with it? Like, we don't have
Now you're asking the other way around. That's a good point. If I have resources available, why should I not use them? Right? So if this is able to produce for me so much information before I make my decision, should I not do that first? Right? And the answer is that depends who you're talking about. Small guys like me, you're right. The bigger places like that, they know it from the sources. They know it from bigger than that. They don't have to do that. So yeah, for people that want to just look up what it says in all the different source material, they'll do a better research job than me. But then when I have all that information, then I have to analyze it. That final analysis is going to be the responsibility of either the Rav or the doctor or the nurse or the consultant or whatever kind of position the person giving an opinion on. At the end of the day, we want to have the natural intelligence and not just the artificial. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you all for participating. Yes, another question, please.
Well, ChatGPT is now 3 years old,
Almost.
and I think that the large language models have been in development for about 10 years before that.
Right.
So it's 3 years old. When it's bar mitzvah, it's going to be exponentially smarter than it is now. My question for you is, why do you assume that it will never get to the point where it is taking into account your, you, as a chavrusa, your individual needs and history and that?
Well,
what is the limit?
Let's add to that. Even now, you could personalize an account. You could personalize not just an open kind of question, but you can make your account and you could feed into it anything you want about your own self. And as much as you educate it, it'll feed out according to that. Will that get to the point that knowing you, like someone that has a long-term relationship with you, knows you, and knows what to judge as to be most important in the situation, or take other family or health or medical or financial issues into account? There's such a thing as halacha that we could be lenient in a certain case because of needs, and we could have to be less lenient in other cases when there aren't such needs. That's a human relationship issue. That's just informational. And at the end of the day, the call of the doctor or the consultant or the Rav is more than simply a mathematical formula. It's personal, and that I don't think that even the proponents of the technology are saying it, but that's a personal relationship.
Well, it isn't a personal relationship because it's not a person. But the question is, can it effectively simulate a personal relationship? Is there a limit to it? Okay.
You're as intelligent or whatever your greatness or limitations are, it's never going to be you. And your wife is going to love you more than she loves the machine.
That's the debate.
Yes, Mr.
What is the contradiction between medical decision and Halacha?
No, they're very similar. There are two different areas of concern. One is with health, and one is with religion. For both of them, the AI is going to feed a lot of information in, give best recommendations, and still at the end needs to have a human assessment about, is this the right thing in this particular case? Knowing you and knowing me and knowing the relationship and knowing the concerns that you might have, I might say, this case we have to do a little bit differently than that, whether it be the medical treatment. In medicine, by the way, nowadays, Baruch Hashem, much more given longevity to our generation, and the older people are more complicated than the young people in medicine. And if the machine is trained with middle-aged people, it's not going to necessarily pick up all the issues that are going to be with older people. You know, a doctor that knows you for many years is going to understand you better. And likewise, the Rav that knows you for many years is going to understand you better. The more understanding that you have in a personal relationship will be able to affect the best recommendation they have, whether it be medical, whether it be financial, or whether it be in a lot of religious areas.
Yes, I'd like to challenge the very notion that AI and the human race are compatible. So I have the following question, and how I'm imagining it. Since the core of humanity of an individual is social imperative, from interaction with people in an analog world, if from childhood a human is denied sufficient experience to form the brain neural connections based upon an analog world, are we creating eventually a humanoid race dependent upon digital machines for decision making and living?
You write that with GPT.
I didn't use AI.
You're painting a picture of an unnatural setting. And
That's what's happening today. If you talk to some of these
Okay.
people,
I didn't go in, by the way, about students giving in papers that they didn't write. That's a whole different kind of story. And other things that are fabrications that's standing behind the truth of them. But it's talked about the honesty that you have to have in business. That applies also in education too. Someone else had a question over there. Rabbi Hall.
In terms of fabricating information like documents and testimony and witnessing things, or have ramifications in Halacha and in Beis Din and things like that. Since it's so becoming easier and easier to fabricate images and video clips and I assume probably documents and signatures, does that already have Halacha ramification now that we have to question?
Yes, back in the Gemara already, we have a concept that we generally will accept the signature, but if the other party will challenge and say, I didn't sign that, that's forged, then we may have to prove it, right? So the other opposing party over here will say, I don't know, it looks like my signature, but I never signed that. And we're gonna have to do some research on there. The codes behind it are going to be revealing. There's ways that we could go behind the scenes and find out things, but it's gonna be more challenging when we have to find out if something is fabricated. Bezdin doesn't give a ruling on the spot. We ask lots of questions, we investigate, we inquire. We've had lawyers in our Bezdin that say that we've never seen something like this. The judges that we go in front of are referees that are not in a duel between two parties, two attorneys, and they rule about what's upheld and not upheld in terms of the rules of the game. But they don't ask inquiring questions at present, try to find out the information and parties and drill them and question after question. We really want to get down to be done emes lamita to know what the truth is, and then the truth comes out. And the parties break down, especially in our business, we have a rule that we speak to the party, the primary part themselves, rather than an attorney. An attorney you can't crack; he's too well trained. But the personal party that's involved in it, eventually the truth comes out, and it'll come out also about there's something off about this picture over here, or this signature, or this document, or this recording. What happened over here exactly? And the more you become sensitized to that, you'll pick up and you ask the right questions, and then hopefully. As we have a Siyata Shmaya, Hashem helps us out to be able to find out the truth about Hashem.
So even though these things are easier to fabricate, the Rabbi is saying it shouldn't be catastrophic.
It won't be blanketly accepted. No, we're going to have to inquire more carefully about it, but with the trust that at the end of the day, the truth is going to come out. Baruch Hashem, nowadays we have so much of conversations in the background that are recorded, the WhatsApps or the emails or such. And we know the conversation what led up to this agreement, and that was so often what this paper says. Where did this paper come from? We're going to ask questions like that, and the person will say, yes, and the truth's going to come out. But it's a challenge. It's going to become a greater challenge, and Hashem's going to help us out more. Hashem's going to help us all of you out, and then keep on growing over here and spreading terror. Go, Rabbi, go ahead.
You talk about the possibility of AI. how is it possible that something with all this cumulative knowledge that doesn't have a human soul, I could scratch the surface of something that's infinite?
You're 100% right. But if people are looking for that, they should come to you and me. Or if those people are just want to get a quick answer, they might be satisfied with less than that. And that's what we're trying to find the difference between the two. You're 100% right. Rabbi? Sorry.
Just as AI develops, and also imaging, capturing images, will also develop.
Correct.
I'm wondering if, like, in the area of practical halacha, maybe not analysis and stuff like that, but like maybe take it to a line. Check the letters, boom, camera, and if you can see it, it's almost like an X-ray.
If it'll work, then it'll be great. People have sent in questions to me with or other rabbanim who are trying to capture the colors of different things that are critical in halacha. It doesn't come out the right way when you take a snapshot with your cell phone. But in the future, that much more accurate. We might be able to do that. We'll see. Right? If it becomes reliable, great. That's another gift from God. If we see that it's still not the same thing or the real thing, we'll have to see that. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Thank you.
I said, hey, dude, you got me addicted to chat.